the glare of fire. I like the sparks coming from the shoes and the handle. I love the smell of the horse's hoofs. The crew were hard and worked, what I went through in them days, but I still likes it.
Yeah.
And for money in it, nothing. There was nothing in it. Now we lived old.
Tom Cody was born in St. John's, Newfoundland in 1885. His grandfather had taught school in the nearby village of Torbay, but two sons moved into the city to learn the blacksmith's trade. One of them, Tom's father, was apprenticed to McGraw's forge on Hill of Chips in the city's East End.
The trade was something wonderful in them days. You used to be bound for 5 years.
To the man that you work
The
with.
man you work for. And there used to be a lot of that. There were some, I guess, didn't like to be bound, didn't like the job, and he used to skip out, stow away out of the country. A lot of them, yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because they put in jail if they were
Yeah.
breaking the boundary. And then they used to have to be in then 9:30 in the night.
Yeah.
You know,
They were young men.
Could have
now,
been,
yeah.
yeah, oh yes, young men. It had to be 9:30, and they wouldn't. What they used to do, they used to lock the door. They'd be getting into the windows. I've heard my father talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And where would
really.
they live with, Pat? They live with
McGrath.
Oh, they live
They
with
lived
the man.
with the
that
man
was
they were
the-
working for.
Yeah.
And once the thing was over, and they were busy in the night, they had to walk on whatever time they were a bit out.
Yeah.
They were a bit out.
How many hours a day would you work then?
Or
would
the
you say?
10 hours was the
Anyway.
schedule then,
Yeah.
60
hours
hours
a week.
a week.
And what would they get for what would their salary would they get?
Oh, my father was getting $6.60 a week.
660.
Yeah,
And he
$6 a usual pay. But my mother found it out, and he was keeping the 60 cents for himself. See, something happened. He found it out, anyhow.
Yeah.
It meant a lot them times, 60 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was McGrath's. That was
McGrath,
down
down
in
here,
the chips.
You gotta buy a glass of rum then. I don't remember that. I do. You could buy a glass of rum for 5 cents.
Yeah.
Glass of rum.
At that time.
Yeah, that time.
Mm.
Yeah. That was rum too. You know what I mean? That
Mm.
was rum.
The St. John's of Tom's boyhood was a city of about 30,000. It was the political, social, and economic capital of the self-governing colony. The focus of business was Water Street, lined with substantial buildings of brick and stone. But the street itself was alternately dusty and muddy in summer, and deep with snow in winter. Finger piers lined the harbor below Water Street, crowded with schooners as long as the harbor remained free of ice. Sailing vessels and steamers carried cargo from around the island and around the world. Through the customs house at King's Beach near Haymarket Square flowed much of the colony's revenue. From the pulpits of the city's many churches flowed spiritual, moral, and sometimes even political guidance. And in the chambers of the colonial building was charted the colony's uneven political and economic course. At the forge on Hill of Chips, Tom's father labored from early morning till late at night, shoeing horses. Atop the city's higher levels, there was still much open space, But the lower part of town was crowded, with streets often no more than narrow lanes running steeply up the hill. Wooden construction, swept by constant North Atlantic winds, had made St. John's the most burned-over city in North America. The most devastating fire broke out on a hot July day in 1892. In less than 20 hours, most of the city was reduced to charred and smoking rubble. Tom was only 7 at the time, but he recalled that day vividly more than 80 years later.
My cousin, Torbay Road, I told him, was only a dog cart then, you know,
Yeah.
it was narrow. She was out in Torbay and now she'd come up to our house got me mother. And she asked me, would I like to go, would I have a ride, to go for a drive, I called it then.
Yeah.
And I said, all right. So I got the box car, you had no carriage then, and a couple of bags of hay, sitting down to it. And we went to, I enjoyed to get as far as King's Road, or a little further over. She says, my God, Tom, she says, we have to turn back town, there's a fire.
Yeah.
So she turned around, came back. A couple of hours after, my mother and my mother's niece, and my sister bride, and baby, and the baby carriage. They headed, in for me aunt, my mother's aunt Johanna, in Fleming Street. And Fleming Street was away in the back of the town.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be, they knew that wouldn't be burned. So that's where we went, in there. After a while, my mother came out, brought me with her.
Yeah.
We went to a house on Bannerman Street. I couldn't show our house now. He said, the saddle roofed house we lived in, shingle, I said, and it's all burnt, one a bit of flame coming out of it. But it's all red. I remember that. My mother says she's already collapsed now, she says, burnt out, she's collapsed. That's the last time I remember seeing the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that more about it too, during the fire. We were on the forces and get a home to go to, me and mother's end. But other poor people had to go in tents, camps, and up in Bellman Park. And I remember I was with my mother bit of hand, bring me around. Oh, honey, how are you, Mum? Oh, how are you? One,
One delight to see one.
delight to see one another, yeah. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
The terrible fire.
Fortunately, only 2 lives were lost in the fire, but everyone was exhausted, stunned by the enormity of the destruction. Fully 2/3 of the city, including nearly all of the business district, was gone. Most of the principal churches and public buildings lay in ruins. More than 1,500 private homes had been reduced to rubble, and Tom's family was only one of nearly 2,000 without housing. The Codys were fortunate to have family in nearby Torbay, and the day after the fire, Tom was sent there. He spent the remainder of the summer rather free of cares, fishing and playing with the other Outport boys. But back in St. John's, there was a sense of urgency. No one wanted to face harsh autumn winds and cold without adequate shelter. Reconstruction was often hasty and supervised badly or not at all. Except along Water and Duckworth Streets, buildings once again were built of wood. Many structures, both in the lower part of town and further up the hill where the more affluent lived, were constructed in long attached rows. But streets were widened, and many of the old lanes and twisting paths disappeared forever. By the end of the century, despite a bank crash in 1894, much of the rebuilding was complete, and St. John's had acquired the character that would endure for most of Tom's life. In Newfoundland, life in winter has never been easy. But when Tom was young, it seemed as if snow accumulated to greater depths and stayed for much longer periods than it would a half-century later. On streets, it packed hard under thousands of hooves and runners, as virtually everything still moved under horsepower. But changes were starting to appear. In 1899, tracks for an electric tram were laid along Water Street, and in May 1900, the first streetcars began to run. Within 5 years, the automobile also appeared, but it was still considered something of a passing fad, particularly by those who gathered daily at Haymarket Square to sell and buy feed for their horses. Even as the street railway expanded to the very edge of the Haymarket, few seemed concerned about the future of the horse. As for young Tom, he had decided his future might lie outside of Newfoundland. And like many young men before and after him, he boarded the train at the recently opened railway station at Riverhead, bound for Canada.
I went to Sydney first. I worked in the steel mills, where they made the railway tracks.
Yeah.
That's where I worked, when they made the railway. I worked there from August until the May of the next year. Then I went to Montreal and worked with my uncle, my father's brother. So I worked there until that December, May until December. And
6 months,
I
right?
celebrated my 24th birthday. I'll always remember where I celebrated my 24th birthday. My Uncle Pat, he had a business of his own. He's a horse shower. That's all he do, horse.
Nothing but horse.
All day long horse. He had another couple of men there with him, beside me.
Then you came back here, and you started your own business.
I came back and worked with my father. My father was in business then.
Tom's stay away had been short, and St. John's had not changed. Streets were still unpaved, and dust remained a serious problem. Streetcars were conquering the hills, and automobiles were seen with increasing frequency. But the horse still dominated transport. Horses were reliable creatures, requiring minimum care, feeding, and of prime interest to Tom, regular shoeing. After Tom returned from Montreal, it became clear that before long he would have to take over the business from his ailing father. He did so about the time the war broke out. In 1919, Newfoundland joined the world in celebration of peace. The colony had paid a high price in the war. Despite the finery and gaiety and genuine joy that peace had come at last, there were signs that life would never again be the same. As he watched the parades, Tom reflected on how rapidly mechanization had spread during the war, even in Newfoundland. No one now doubted that the gasoline-powered vehicle had come to stay. Yet there was no cause for alarm. Transport remained mixed, and horses were still dominant. The blacksmith trade still seemed as secure as any could be in an uncertain world. Tom was now approaching his mid-30s. He was married and had a young son, William. Between these two would grow an enduring bond, strengthened by the boy's fascination with his father's forge.
I like the blacksmith business. Same as Papa, fascinate me about that.
Must be in the blood.
And you know, if you notice, I know years ago, usually all the blacksmith forge all the blacksmiths got a 2.5 doors. You know, top door,
Dutch door.
The bottom doors are always closed, top is open. That's to keep the children out, see, because the children are so fascinated by the fire.
That's right.
They'll come down after school, dozens and dozens, froze, they'll be froze to death outside on a cold day, and they outside can't get in, they're looking in at the fire, you know.
Watching the glare of the fire, yeah.
Well, I was the same, you know, that fascinated me, that, and then I got gradually, I wanted to go up with Pop, and I'd start in hammering a bit of iron and that, and see what I could do with a bit of iron. I remember the first thing when I wasn't even in my trade, like the sealers, when they're all go out to dice. Remember, Pap, they all used to have what they call frosters put in their feet.
In their boots.
In their boots. They used to have
keep them slipping.
Keep them slipping. Frosters, we used to make what we call them, with a little bit of foil, and we flatten them out in the fire and make them like a chisel and cut them off, the very little small things.
Sparrows.
And you go down then and sell them, wouldn't I? You sell them to the sealers.
Yeah.
5 cents a dozen. And sometimes the sealers never even had the money, so they give you a cake of hardtack, or 2 cakes of hardtack.
Yeah.
The sealers were not alone in being able to scrape together barely enough to keep alive in the decade that followed the war. What optimism there had been rapidly yielded to harsh realities. The 20s in Newfoundland could hardly be described as roaring. The colony was crippled with enormous debts from war and railway building. A generation of its most promising young men had been decimated. The base of its economy, the fishery, unreformed and chaotic, was beset by steadily declining prices. Government was riddled with waste, corruption, and patronage, and the archaic social and economic structure was oppressive to the majority. With life so bleak, almost any non-political diversion was welcomed. Thus it was with great vicarious enthusiasm that the populace followed the adventures of those who sought to conquer the air. There was adventure to be had on land as well for those with money to purchase automobiles. And as the 20s progressed, the horse appeared to lose ground steadily to the motor vehicle. The writing was by now clearly on the wall. Still, there were plenty of horses, and Tom had all the work he could handle. In fact, by 1930, he had reached an age at which he felt he needed assistance, and he was delighted when young Bill began to work with him.
When I went to work with Pop in 1930, I was 13. I had to help him. You know, we had a big family and growing up, and of course that's all the schooling you'd get then, as high as I could go, you know, 6th grade, and then you're out. So then I went out to work with Pop, and first I'd go, wouldn't I, just the birch broom, cleaning up, you know, and after the horses and that, then eventually I would take the shoes, learn to take the shoes off, and then race them down. And I was 5 years at him now, you know. Pop, watch him, and then I try it, and I try it, and I fail, and I try it, and I fail, and eventually I grasp it. That was like I was telling you, one thing about iron, it grows into you, you feel it. Then, when I got my trade from Papa, I went out and I worked with a great big concern that had a couple of hundred horses there. Big horses, there were 5 or 6 of us, blacksmiths up there, wheelwrights and everything. And that's what we do all day long. We go to work then at 7 in the morning and work until 6. Then I leave that in the evening at 6 and go home and get something to eat and go down to Pop's Forge and work down there until 10, 11 every night. You know, I done that for...
And that was work too,
Yes.
what you were doing.
And I done that for 6 nights a week for 10 or 15 years, I suppose, did I, Pop?
I guess so.
Must be.
Yeah.
And now when I go up to Pop's Forge, he had to supply the merchants here with the shoes and that. And I'd go up and I'd be throwing up shoes, fire welding them in. That was the hardest, Pop found, the hard fire weld, you know. All day long. The time you go up in the morning, the horses would be lined up, wouldn't they, Pop?
Yeah.
Lined up. So some of the men would be up there 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, waiting for us to go
Yeah,
up.
then you would, long before
And
we
we go up and we start in, and all day long we'd be under horses, you know, showing them, working hard, straighten your back up after one horse goes up.
I was telling him about the back, yeah.
Yeah, another one going.
Under another one.
Yeah.
Under another one. Some of them horses lean on that all their weight. Some no. And when you get out, you watch your chance to get clear of his leg.
The horse will fall down.
The horse almost fall down. He's putting that much weight on you.
That's the weight he'd have
weight
on you.
on you.
Oh, he had some terrific weight on you. And it was a real dangerous trade, I'll tell you, because many's a time a horse let me, many's, I'd say hundreds of times, hundreds. The horse let me have it, and I hit the side of the wall like a sack of potatoes. Pick yourself up, you know. You never be that hurt to that extent, you know. Although you get a good kick from
He'd
it.
flick you.
Yeah, they flick you, and there's no object there all right, you go right on.
Yeah.
But if there happened to be a wall there, you're right up against it.
Yeah.
and then you come back to the horse. Some you strike were terrible trying to shoot, weren't they?
Did you are?
By the heavenly days. There it is. In the company I worked for, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of horses every year. You'd be getting them all ready for different different firms and different companies and that, you know. Mining, logging, and the whole, it'd be all horses. All horses would be. And that was right up early 40s.
Oh, I was shooting a horse one time. Joe Ryle. Do you remember Joe Ryle? He's working there.
Yeah.
You know, it was an awful cold day.
Yeah.
And the horse was outside the door, no room to get in, you know. He was nasty. But Joe used to always stand to his head, this one thing about him. I never had no trouble with him kicking around. Never. I was driving on, I had 2 shoes on, I was driving on the hind one. And he was putting all his weight on me, see? And I said, I had a couple of nails to drive, and I said, I'll trick you with it. It's myself, you know. Double last name, Top for sure, and you
The
know.
horse, yeah, with all his weight on you.
That bugger got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put the mark of his
Hoof.
sharp shoe, toe cock, and right there on me tie, look. Right there.
Did he? Kicked you?
Yeah, it got me. Drove me over with a pile of old shoes, you know the voice was doing.
Yeah.
Drove me on top of that. And in a minute I found me leg getting like that, as stiff as that.
Yeah.
This leg. So I suppose one got me home anyhow. We got a doctor. Got doctor me first. The doctor wasn't too much interested in me leg and hand, about the kick.
Yeah.
All he was interested in is about I had lower teeth there. It was the first thing he looked at. You get them out. You're high I never forgot it. He was more interested in me teeth. That's why he was right. He knew.
Yeah.
And after a little while, my leg got better.
Yeah.
But it's to the pants, the overalls, the pants, and the heavy underwear. There was it broke the skin.
Yeah.
But no big deep cut now or nothing, no. Because it's a slightly part of my leg.
He let
And I
you
guess
have
it was hard to that time, you know. Tough.
Yeah.
The horse got me though.
In the horseshoe, you're dealing with flesh and blood, you know,
Yeah,
Pap?
yeah,
And you had to be a part doctor because if the horse got crippled or anything like that, you had to bleed him.
Yeah.
You had to bleed him, and many's a time the horse went and go over with the sharp shoe at him, go right down to the fleshy part of his foot.
Parkinson.
Cork yourself, you call it. You had to
Very
doctor
sad.
that up.
Just the same as your fingernail. Practically, your fingernail on your fingers is only just a part of it. You go to with the horse, it's practically the same thing. If you go to cut too deep or put the nail in too deep, and cripple the horse, or go up in the flesh, you got to know how much horn you can take off and how much horn you can rash away, you know.
So you shoe a horse for a whole year for $8, wouldn't you?
My heavens almighty, yes, for $6.
6.
Yeah,
Great big draft horse.
yeah.
And shoe him the whole year, however long it take, you know.
12 months.
Sometime for the whole 12 months. And
Yeah.
it could,
Different prices. There were some, if you were a pony, all the ponies paid $4 a year.
Yeah.
Down on Torbay and that. $4 for 12 months.
No wonder
Yeah.
Papa's want to give me $1.50 a week.
Oh my God, you could
Salary.
Yeah.
That's what I started on,
I don't know
$1.50.
how we get along, how we exist at that. I suppose other little jobs you do on the side, I suppose, kept it going.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
should
that's
do
right.
catamarans and do a little iron work, a lot of work like working for wars and that.
Yeah,
That was the paid up for what we lost out in the horse.
on the other.
And we weren't the only one, all the blacksmiths around wouldn't do it.
If the 20s had been bad, the 30s would be worse. The world slid into the Great Depression. In no corner of the globe could its effects be avoided, least of all on an island with an economy based almost totally on the export of primary resources. Outport fishermen watched helplessly as prices for their catches declined and markets disappeared altogether. But as long as the fishery itself did not fail, they at least were able to feed their families. The urban poor were much less able to be self-sufficient. For them, the times indeed were hard. Bill could not have begun his apprenticeship with his father at a worse time. Blacksmiths depended upon many low-priced jobs for their livelihood. With the volume of work declining, their very existence was threatened.
Me and Papa be up there every day where people would come along previous to that and want to get something, wouldn't ask the price. Then when the depression started coming in, they want to know how much this would cost, and a little too much, they wouldn't get it done. The business started to go bad, and we'd be in playing cards in a little office we had, playing cards. They had a little tiny stove there like that, and we were cold winters there like today, and after a time, by someone come in, we after losing a shoe. That's the only time they come in then, wouldn't it, Pap?
Yeah.
We after losing a shoe. So we go out and nail the shoe on. How much? 20 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
We take the 20 cents, We go down and buy 2 packages of bugler. That's 10 cents a package. 2 packages of bugler. Now that was my first. I remember distinctly with the Depression. You know, we couldn't buy no iron for the.
We had no money to buy
We
it.
had no money to buy iron. We go down around the wharf. We could get old spikes or anything like that. We're condemned down by the wharf, old bent up spikes. And we go up then and we straighten them out in the fire and that and make a shoe out of it. Then we'd have to watch our coal, see if we were using too much coal. At that time, we had to try to conserve everything. And this is the way it
I
is done.
just saw a couple of little round washers on the street, or a little tiny boat.
You pick it
You
up,
pick it up in your pocket.
put it in your pocket. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Anything,
If the day was Sunday, it'd be the same.
yeah.
Your good clothes on.
Anything at all, yeah. You know, it was really bad for the trade. It hit the trade overnight when that Depression come. Of course, that was after the crash of 29.
Oh, yeah.
No one had anything. Everyone was in the same boat, you know.
Most everyone, not everyone, a lot on the doors, weren't
On
they?
the door. When Pop used to work, I tell you, the way it eventually ended out when we used to work for people like the butchers.
Yeah.
Wouldn't get a cent, no transaction. We show his horse, and at the end of the quarter, Pop would go down. He had a big family, 14 children, see?
Yeah.
And they give us the meats.
Yeah.
You work for George Neal's, and you
give
get
us
your
flour.
tubs of butter and flour and things like
M.J.
that.
O'Brien,
And your
big
groceries.
groceries.
No money, no transaction at all. No money transaction, was it? After I finished the work, nearly every day, you know, as you're doing a lot of forge work, you got to get all your equipment ready for the following day, you know. So you notice I leave them there, let them cool off, you know. If I quench them in the water and go to use them in the morning, the first blow the man would make, he'd crack off. Years ago, that you'd have to make everything that you use. You'd have to make the hammer, and you had to make your tongs and your pritchels and whatever you needed, didn't you? Never buy anything, you know, apart from your pliers, you'd make them yourself.
They're handmade out of it, right?
Handmade, oh yes, all handmade.
They're good, yeah.
That's
They were strong.
That's over,
And,
I suppose, 100 year old, because I know
yeah.
it was only first when I went to work, that's 50 years ago, that I'd make them, you know. I'd make something like that, but since that you could replace them by the manufactured ones, you know. Same way like the picks. The picks, well, you wouldn't buy a pick, you had to make your own picks.
Yeah.
Make all your own picks, didn't you?
Yeah, oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had to make different sizes. You made larger ones here in the eye. This is a miner's pick, eh?
Miner's pick,
Just
yeah.
for the miners working in the mine, you know.
Yeah.
But you
We're here, oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're on the vision.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was going to make a lovely pick. You put a knife on there, with a knife on it, will you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't it?
You want
It never come out of hand.
No.
But you'd never get that in handle now.
No.
Eh?
But see, the original idea
What is
of
that
that
for,
was for the miners.
Oh, I know, yes.
Short
it's far,
strokes,
yes.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah, yes.
down in the
Mine.
coal mines
Yeah.
in Bell Island.
Yeah.
And the majority of it was, you know.
Yeah.
When I takes a bit of hot iron out of the forge and goes to anneal it, whatever I does, turn an eye or whatever it is, you got to feel. You got to feel it like an artist creating something, eh? You got to feel it. You know, you got to feel the metal when you get that tongs, you know, what you're going to do with it.
Yeah. And yeah, on your wedding, you got the time.
Yeah.
The time.
Mm-hmm.
Get the heats, get the two heats for the stick together, work together.
Forge well, you know.
Forge
There's
well.
none of that, hardly any of that
No,
done
I
today.
suppose
That's a
not,
lost start.
Yes, yes,
You know, fuse 2 pieces of metal together
and hammer them together.
and weld them, a fire weld, you know.
Many of the old ways lived only in memory by the time Bill finished his apprenticeship. The age of technology was slowly but certainly gathering momentum. Perhaps its most pervasive symbol was radio, at once a diversion for everyone caught in the grinding depression, and a new source of information and news. Unfortunately, most of the latter was bad. In Newfoundland, perhaps even more than in many other places in North America. By mid-decade, the virtually bankrupt colony had lost the right to govern itself and surrendered its independence to a commission government. Although the Depression slowed down the displacement of horses by motor vehicles, there could be no doubt that the trend would continue. But worry about the future had no place in the Codys' thoughts. Their main concern was for the present.
There wasn't too much forge work, what I should say then, because there wasn't as much building getting done or anything like that.
Big, no,
You know,
only now and again.
it's only now and again
Yeah.
occasionally, you know. It was all mostly small work, small jobs, you know, miscellaneous iron work. You'd be making everything. You can name it down almost to a pan sometimes. You know, try to forge it out of a piece of steel. Every store that ever had meat or salt beef or what, they'd have meat hooks and that. You forge all that out, you'd make all that. You'd make this would be for longshoremen and that, taking bales of hay and that, half of the hauling and half of the wharf and that, you know. You make lots like that. All that was done manually by, you know, done by hand. Now today, that's what you call drop forge, manufactured by various machinery, you know, and just done, and that is done by the thousands put out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you done 20 of them a day, it was a good day's work.
I guess so.
Huh?
Yes,
Yes, because you had to split that down and then you had to draw that out.
Yeah.
Look, that's
Yeah.
you know, that's the one piece of iron, see.
It is,
That had to be drawn down. Look, that's
it lasts no time, did you?
no, that's the same size iron.
Yeah.
There is there. This is
Yeah.
the same there as there, only it's drawn down. Look,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, and that wouldn't be dressed up after with a foil or anything.
No.
A striker is just as good as the man who's behind the anvil, you know. He just takes the same kind of a part into it. If you get a good man, you hold on to him until he go out of his time. Like that was years ago, the old Blacksmith years ago. They hold on a good striker for 5 years, and all they'd want him to do would be striking, because if he's so good at it, see.
Yeah, I'm pacing him, you know, wherever I hit, he follows me hammer. I could hit up there, and he hit up there. Wherever my hammer hits, he follows me. He follows wherever I hit, because I could say hit up there, you know. Wherever I strike the hammer, that's where he'd strike with the sledge. Wherever I go. And when you want him to stop, you just hit like that, you know.
Your hammer is your teacher, teaching him what to do. Years ago, we used to have two strikers drawing out big, heavy steels. You'd have to draw it out to nothing, you know. And you'd be there then at the fire, you'd be there then at the, with the sledge in your hand, two men, and you draw that down up and there and start almost cold, and your tongue would be almost hanging out. Walking, you know, all done by fire. Years ago, Blacksmith would have a little small fire, be only contained in a 3-foot diameter, and they'd have all that big heat in that, you know, and they couldn't control it. It'd go all out over around, you know, their shop. That's really the blacksmith shop we went to years ago. They'd be just as black as the ace of spades, you know, awful black. And people look in, and they sing, "Are you in there, Mr. Cody?" And they wouldn't know if in there, because so black in there. And you see the little glimmer of fire, you know, from the smoke and the darkness and that. But never heard any of them old men worked in that environment, you know. And this is what I don't understand. Today, decent bit of dust, you know, they're high murder, you know. You got them old fellas seem to be a ripe old age, huh? And they live in that.
The forge might be a noisy place and dirty with soot, but it was warm, and a convivial atmosphere developed that attracted a number of regular characters.
That would be their place to come in. They had the little drop of Jamaica rum and they're getting, you know. So at that time, if the police see it all, you know, the authorities will see you, you were get the hand and walk right down to the courthouse. You know, you weren't allowed in a public place at all. So they all be heading for the forge. Sure, when I used to go up, when I went to Lormy trade with Pop, like I say, and we could be all there. Be dozens of them coming in, lean over the half door, and then mind if I come in and have a little quick one? Yes, come in.
We wouldn't mind them when they be coming, but when they get drunk, that's the time you will get out of here.
Yeah. I still hadn't come up to my place. It was only recently from the university in there. A lady came down and asked me would I had any objections to bringing a half dozen people down on a Saturday morning, you know. I said no, none whatsoever. But I said I had to keep on working, but see, that's what we wanted. First time they ever see it, we're fascinated. You never see anything done by hand, you know. A job to get them to leave. Yeah? Nearly everyone comes in the shop at the present day. If you come in there and we're right in the process of doing something, turning grapings, you know, and that's an art in itself, the turning grapings uniform, you know. And you get the people there, they'll stay there to the bitter end before they'd leave. They want to see the work, you know. That's different, isn't it, Papa?
Oh,
It's all different. Now, years ago, when they do the anchors or grapnels, we all wanted to have them tarred, you know, because they thought the tar preserved them, you know, Pop, preserve them. So you'd haul out and you turn your grapnels, and you got the dipping boiler hot, you know, and they bake on, the tar will bake on the iron. So that's the type of work was years ago. You make grapnels, you know, ship's work or vessels, 3-eyed bands and 2-eyed bands, single bands and rudder assemblies, all that to be forged by hand. Be all manual welding. Be no such thing as welded by machines like we have today, you know, cuts to corners. All that had to be forged out and it had to be made in such a way that it would had to be solid because a man's life depended on it, men's lives out on the water.
In 1937, the ill-fated airship Hindenburg sailed over St. John's, fins emblazoned with the swastika symbol of the regime that would shortly plunge the world into chaos. The last days of peace saw Newfoundlanders enduring times that were harder than ever. It seemed no cure could be found for the economic malaise that afflicted the colony. Then came war. Its direct impact on Newfoundland was perhaps greater than on any other part of North America, thanks to the island's strategic position on the North Atlantic shipping lanes. Around the city, Navy and merchant seamen were everywhere, delighted to be ashore for whatever good times they might grab, before committing themselves once more to the grim cold and death that might await not all that far offshore. As the war progressed, the influence of the Americans in particular grew, as several major bases were constructed, among them Fort Pepperell on the shore of Kitty Lake. It was sad irony that war breathed new life into Newfoundland's economy. Every sector grew, especially the service industries. Although the horse was becoming increasingly insignificant in transport, during the war this was barely a consideration for the blacksmiths. The demand for ironworking skills was constant. Tom and Bill, like everyone else, had become essential cogs in the machinery of the war effort. Throughout its 6-year duration, Newfoundlanders lived with the sights and sounds of the war very near, in the harbor, along the waterfront. The unreal became commonplace, almost the norm. Then, the war was over. And the colony returned to a quieter, more measured existence. But once again, as after the First World War, things could never return to the way they had been. Too many outside influences had impacted the people and their way of looking at things. In Britain, attitudes towards colonies were changing. At the same time as economic fortunes had turned, so too had the minds of Newfoundlanders towards regaining control over their own affairs. Tom and Bill, working late into each night, tuned in to the radio broadcasts of the proceedings of the National Convention, as delegates passionately debated possible forms of future government. On the streets, there was a change that was less significant, but temporarily more confusing, as traffic was switched from British left-hand drive to North American right-hand drive, as midnight ushered in 1947. It would be several years before the last of the old-style vehicles disappeared from the streets. The Responsible Government Economic Union Confederation battle absorbed the passions of Newfoundlanders until Confederation squeaked through on a second referendum in July 1948. And on the stroke of midnight, March 31st, 1949, Newfoundland became a province of Canada. Other changes soon occurred in St. John's as well. On Water Street, the streetcar tracks were ripped out and pavement replaced the old cobblestones. Although horses did not disappear completely, by the mid-50s they were largely relegated to the low-return, dirtier jobs, such as hauling coal.
1950, there was hundreds of horses hauling coal. That was in 50. I left up there in 54, and it was only then it started to decline.
Yeah.
You know, the various companies start getting their the trucks in, replace the horses. But previous to that, right up to 1954, we had all kinds of blacksmith work and that in the shop. Like I say, and it was only just overnight it sort of collapsed. Overnight. Blacksmithing gradually died right out. The company I work with, they had from 150 to 250 horses. Because that died out, you know, all the horses, they were replacing them with trucks, and you haul the coal with little pickup trucks, and just seen the collapse. You go there every morning and there'll be 5 fires that be going, 5 boards, and then all of a sudden there's only 2, then there was 1, you know, and then it was finished. And I went to the garage, worked in the garage. They didn't want no horses at all. That's how I come to get my welding trade, you know. when I went in business for myself, I combined the whole lot of it together. I was the original one in St. John's that started the ornamental field, and now it's after spreading everyone, you know. How often I wish I had my father's anvil here. Such a sound in it. It's like the joy bells, you know. Beautiful sound.
That sound had rung out for more than 50 years from Tom's forge, nestled away in the decaying tenements of the densely populated central section of the city. On a clear, still day, the anvil's ring could be heard many blocks away. The narrow streets and twisting lanes of that part of the city had character. Of that there could be no doubt. Some of them had survived, much as they were, since before the fire of 1892. By 1950, the entire area had become an obvious target for redevelopment. Rehabilitation was deemed impossible. Demolition was the only reasonable solution. It began early in the 50s. House after house was pulled down, and over the decades, street after street disappeared. It was as if protective layers were being peeled away until only Tom's forge was left standing. Tom, now well into his 70s, watched familiar landmarks disappear as he made his way each day to his forge. That dilapidated structure continued to stand for several years, almost defiantly, a symbol of and temporary monument to another time, another way of life. Then, finally, on October 9th, 1964, it, too, came down.
That's right in the smack where City Hall is at now. The last building they left there, didn't they?
Yeah, that's it to come down, I think.
Yeah, the last building. When they tore it down, down underneath it, you know, there was no foundation or anything there. At that time, all the houses were just built on a rock or on the side of a hill or anything, you know, no dig out for foundation. And when they tore it down, there was nothing there for years and years and years after. A great big lump of iron. Iron, all the work over the, you might say, when did you build it?
1922 I went to work there.
22.
Built it, yeah, in 22.
But from 1922 up to when they tore it down 15 years ago, we used to heave all that iron out, you know, and down and accumulate and accumulate. And over the years, disintegrated with rust and that, or a form down in the ground, you know, form, and there's one big block the size of about 25 by 25, and about, imagine, it went down 6 or 7, maybe 8 feet deep, you know. All that was iron. Yeah.
The youngsters, the kids up around there were tearing up the whole place. There were money there. Money there.
Oh, yeah, lots of money. They wrote for everything will be the 100, seekers and everything.
Yeah.
Half had the money. All they could find was iron.
Yeah.
Iron.
What horses and nails.
Scrabbing and everything.
Somebody said, someone was telling me, you were saying about the forge, tearing down the forge, don't something tear down. He put the, I don't know if it was Morn or who it was, put the, thought he had no trouble tearing down the forge, falling down. What a surprise he got.
Yes, he almost hauled the dump off the truck.
It didn't, yes, it didn't budge.
He went near because the forge is leaning right towards the hill, you know.
He sat down.
And he put a big cable around it and that, you know.
You look at it, you think it's tumbling down, look at it.
Yeah.
Now he put a rope around it again, and this time he got it, and he had to be smothered with soot. Black, you couldn't see where you were to. You couldn't see where you were to.
The dust of 50 years was in it. And it's settled all over City Hall, that now.
Yeah. Every City Hall is now right on the corner of that James
Yeah.
Street. So.
Right on the
Yeah.
side. They jumped the gun, see, everyone thought when the horse days were gone, that the blacksmith was gone, you know. But, see, they never realised that even a lot of things in our modern age, there's only one man that's a blacksmith, you know. All day long there'll be people coming in, getting small jobs, you know, from the time you start in the morning. Always some little job, never short of a job. Small job. A gentleman said to me here this morning, he said, there's one thing, he said, there'll always be the blacksmith of the future.